Okay, let's unpack this. We've pulled together quite a stack of sources here. We're looking at reports from the big forecasting agencies, ECMWF, Copernicus, DTN, plus specific warnings from Roshadromet in Russia and regional outlooks like Estofex.
Right. All focused on Europe, what, June 14th to the 17th, 2025?
Exactly. And our goal here, our mission in this deep dive, is to really slice through all that data.
Yeah. Find the key signals.
And pinpoint what's most important for you to know about the heat, about the storm risks coming up.
Okay.
So get ready for, well, widespread warmth across the continent, it seems.
That's definitely the big picture theme.
But also some very specific, potentially quite impactful storm threats in certain spots.
Yeah, that warm signal is strong. Almost all sources agree. Warmer than average across much of Europe.
And where's the confidence highest for that?
Seems really centered on central, southern, and eastern regions. And interestingly, the UK is included in that widespread warmth too.
So we could be seeing those first sort of signs of significant heat stress, especially where it's already dry, I guess.
Absolutely. That's a crucial point. Some areas, particularly in northwestern Europe, had a record warm spring.
Right.
So the soil is very dry. And that dryness, well, it acts like an amplifier when high pressure moves in. It helps heat the surface faster.
Okay, that makes sense.
Huh.
But you mentioned there's some disagreement about how warm.
Yeah, that's where it gets interesting. Everyone agrees, warmer than average. But how much warmer? That's the question. Some forecasts are pointing towards well above average temperatures, you know, potentially strong warm anomalies.
Right.
Others are a bit more conservative. They see warmth, but maybe not hitting those really strong anomaly levels. So some uncertainty on the intensity.
Okay, so maybe not a full-blown continent-wide heat wave alert just yet, but definitely notable warmth. What's driving it beyond just the dry soil effect?
It looks like a combination of things. High pressure patterns, certainly playing a role across parts of the continent. Also, persistently warmer than average sea temperatures in the North Atlantic. There's even a marine heat wave noted near the UK.
Wow. Okay.
And you combine those large-scale drivers with the local dryness. That's the recipe for temperatures to climb and stay elevated.
It really shows how interconnected it all is, doesn't it? Okay, let's shift gears then. From the broad heat picture to the more localized storm risks. Where are the main threats?
The clearest, most defined storm risk seems focused on western and central Russia, particularly the Moscow region.
Okay.
This is linked to a pretty well-developed cyclone expected there around June 14th, maybe the 15th.
And national agencies are flagging this.
Yes, Roshadromet has issued warnings. They're expecting widespread rain, thunderstorms mixed in, and potentially quite strong gusty winds.
How strong?
Talking potentially up to 15 meters per second, and significantly a risk of large hail. Estofex also put out a level 1 risk for that area early on for wind and hail too.
Okay, so a fairly serious setup there.
Yeah.
What about the North Caucasus? You mentioned that region too.
Yeah, that's a different flavor of risk. It seems more persistent down there. Almost a daily chance of thunderstorms through that whole June 14, 17 window.
Really? Daily chances.
That's what local forecasts are suggesting. And some could definitely turn severe, given the terrain, the mountains, and the instability expected. Large hail is the primary concern highlighted there.
Right, terrain often plays a big role with hail.
Exactly. And Estofex also initially flagged that region for large hail potential.
Okay. And then Eastern Europe sounded a bit more fuzzy.
It is, yeah. A more complex picture, less certain. Some sources suggest it might trend drier overall, but its proximity to low-pressure systems off to the northwest, combined with warm, moist air getting pulled in, that could still trigger thunderstorms, especially maybe in east-central parts.
It's more conditional.
Precisely. The risk isn't as locked in as Russia or the Caucasus. It really depends on how those larger weather patterns evolve. It's one to watch for potential rather than a definite, widespread severe threat right now.
Right. So pulling this all together then, what does this actually mean for you, the listener, potentially experiencing this?
Well, on the heat side, that widespread warmth means, increasing potential for heat stress for potentially millions of people. It could worsen existing drought issues, impact agriculture, water resources, maybe even energy demand for cooling.
And the storms.
For those specific areas, western central Russia, the North Caucasus, the threats are more localized, but potentially quite severe. Think localized flooding from heavy rain, maybe power outages from wind, and of course damage from large hail.
Okay.
The key nuance is that uncertainty. How hot exactly will it get across the board? And how will that variable storm risk in places like Eastern Europe play out? These forecasts definitely need close watching over the next few days.
Absolutely. And here's maybe a final thought for you to mull over as we wrap up.
Okay.
When you think about all the factors the sources mention contributing to this forecast, you've got marine heat waves in the Atlantic possibly influencing things.
Right, the pressure patterns.
Record low Arctic sea ice, which some research links to mid-latitude weather. And then right down to how dry the ground is in your local area.
Yeah.
It really drives home how these huge global climate anomalies are so deeply connected to the specific weather, the actual risks you might face right where you are next week, doesn't it? Makes you think.